I guess the question is, how does someone like you, who is that way, you are still attracted to this tradition, and you have accommodated yourself to it. So I guess maybe the biggest question of all is how have you done that?
Well, because I don't see any. In fact, I see an inverse relationship, generally speaking, between the beauty of the words and the human behavior that it engenders.
Right.
Generally speaking, the more beautiful the words,
right.
the more audacious the hope. Yeah, I'm giving away my political leaning.
Yeah, that's right.
the more dangerous. Like, this is not a book of beautiful words. Occasionally there are some beautiful words in there.
Right.
But overall, this is a bunch of minute prescriptions, very parochial. It's directed towards one people, one nation, in like one land. And I'm not sure the beauty of the words creates beautiful people.
Right.
I think that like minute prescriptions on behavior and joining people to a specific community has more effect on morally educating people. Like I was thinking guest 30 there is Pascal Dussapin from France. He's a French classical music composer.
Oh.
So we've got some very lofty...
a Frenchman.
Yeah, that's guest 30. So like, here, I got a serious question for you. So, like, here are some of the factors that I think that it takes to make good people. I think to make good people, you need like a transcendent moral code. You need a community to look over what you do. You just can't go out on your own and be good. Generally speaking, I think you need a community. You need a tradition. I think you need belief in God, and I think you need a text, to the code to study. But when I ask myself, what are all the things that have the most, what one thing has the most influence on how I behave? To me, it's the community. Like, has more influence on me than God, more influence on me than the text, more influence on me than every other single thing. It's the community. And so maybe that's not just me. Maybe that's a general truth.
Right.
That the primary way to morally discipline people is to make them a part of a very concrete community.
Right.
And what this text is talking about is creating that concrete community.
Right.
And people, look out for each other to make sure that, you're not deviating too much. And if you do, they kick you out.
Right. There's a guy named Amitai Etzioni who's put a lot of thought and developed a view of the world called communitarianism, and I think that's along the lines of what he's proposing, that ultimately the most powerful inducements are social ones, and that the most powerful way of shaping someone's worldview in a positive way and shaping is to make the community dynamic such that I think that they're pressured in various ways, that the carrot and the stick are it's interesting. I think maybe that is a general truth about our species. I would be someone who would resist that idea for myself, that I am kind of innately suspicious of what happens within communities, and that I think that communities can do good things, but they can have a positive impact on people, but also often people's worst impulses are accentuated within a community. But I think and so I would be someone who would like to think, well, no, my own moral code ought to be independent of any one community, because I can't trust a community with it. But I'm a human being, and so it may be that however much I try to resist the idea that that my view of the world exists within a larger matrix, and that I'm influenced by that matrix, I think it's true even of me. Or maybe most of all of me, someone who tries to resist. But yeah.
If you like to evaluate all the factors that influence your behavior, which one factor has the most effect on whether you're good or bad?
Well, first is how I determine what good or bad are.
The way that you determine it.
Oh. I mean, you know the saying, "Reason is handmaid to the passions." I think I can say that. Well, I think it out, and I do try to be logically consistent, and but ultimately, my basic impulses are what they are. I mean, it's so I would, if not intuition, then I just feel, for example, that if you can avoid causing suffering, unnecessary suffering, like we were talking about with animals, if you can avoid it, it's better to avoid it. If that's possible. I have no. I mean, I could debate it, but ultimately, I'm not. I don't think I can be persuaded by debate because it's just something that I feel. So whatever logical structure I erect around that is logically consistent. But at the bottom of it is just an intuition, kind of a moral intuition that I'm not able to shake and don't have any interest in shaking.
So you're saying your conscience is the most powerful thing that affects the morality of your behavior?
Yes, I guess that was a very long-winded way of saying that. Yes. I mean, I also think that of everyone else. I think that ultimately everyone else is. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, look, I can say that the flying spaghetti monster is up there, and he agrees with me, and and that's why my views have validity because the flying spaghetti monster told me that, or I can say it was Hashem or whatever, but that's just a cop out. It seems like it's there's no reason for anyone to believe me and my worldview, so there's someone big and powerful. There's a big man up there somewhere who said that I was right. It just seems like bullshit.
So you don't believe in the existence of a transcendent, personal, eternal deity?
No. I was going to say that's the short answer, but that may actually be the long answer as well.
Okay, what's the next thing that catches your attention in this week's parsha?
Deity was where you lost me, by the way. I had you up until there. I mean, I played Dungeons and Dragons for too long. I still think of the book Deities and Demigods, which was almost as good as the Monster Manual. I recommend it. Okay, which the next thing?
The next thing that catches your attention.
Well, I'm not. One of the interesting things, and I feel like I'm bashing Judaism a lot, and that's not my.
That's okay. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah, but it's not. But it's really not my intention. I don't. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of wonderful things in the tradition, and that I'm very attracted to. But this parsha, I don't see a lot of it. Okay, like all Israel shall hear and fear, and they shall not again do such an evil thing in your midst. I'm interested in that because it reminds me of the idea. There's a thing in the Talmud, I forget which tractate, which is that if you have an evil impulse that you can't shake, that you go somewhere else.
You dress in black. You go somewhere where you're not known.
Where you're not known,
and indulge it.
And you indulge it there. Now, there's actually a logic to that because you're trying not to, if you're going to do it, damage someone else's community rather than your own. So that's not the noblest of impulses, but the noblest. But this thing about in your midst that if you can obliterate an impurity, great. If not, make it someone else's problem. It's not a universalist sentiment. It's this is not a universalist document, so that's surprising. But I mean, it's a very, it's like if you're locked out of your house and you got to take a shit. All right, not a great situation to be in, but at least shit on your neighbor's lawn instead of yours. Like, well, that's not so hot. That's not very inspiring to me.
Right.
But it does seem to be a real stream within the Jewish tradition.
Right. And just giving me a hard time for the technical issues. Don't worry, I'm videotaping all this for later broadcasts, so don't worry if there are technical issues now. You will be able to watch this on YouTube.
Oh, cool! Yeah, it'll be broadcast later.
Yeah, I don't know where I've lost the place now, but there was a place in here where it says that if you catch someone doing something bad, you put them to death if they're a